friends. Welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number, I actually have no idea. You will have noticed what number it is on the opening card. This is July 7th, 2023, and I'm Emilie Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And as those of you who are returning guests will notice I'm in a different location. This is because there was a little communication snafu issue between myself and my husband, and he helpfully started the dishwasher, which is close enough to where I normally record this video that I could hear it for sure, and I was afraid you would be able to also. So I just shifted into the living room, and I realized I'm not really at a good angle. So I have a card table and a chair, and my camera is attached to another chair, and so hopefully this will all work. Flosstube means cross stitch, and variety show means other things, and we'll see what those are today, what the other things are. So I didn't make a video last week. Thanks for those of you who are coming back despite having had a blank week. I appreciate that. Life was just too busy. I had so many things going on that prevented me from having much stitching time, and that meant that on the day that I would have made the video, I had other things that sort of crowded in. But I've made sure that this week would be a normal week. So here we are. And just while we're on the administrative subjects, next week I will not be making a video because I will be traveling to Canada to visit my friend, and I'll say a few words about that in a few minutes from now. But let's talk about cross stitch, because that's what the Flosstube is. Cross stitch, I'm going to show you under the roof of blue Ionian weather. I sort of have this idea that I'm going to show this. I'm going to show you oh, I just realized I'm missing something. You know what? I'm going to pause right now and come back. One moment, please. That was just a moment for you, and it wasn't much more than a moment for me. All right. I had to run all the way up to the third floor to the sewing room. So anyway, under the roof of blue Ionian weather is one of the two full coverage pieces that I have going. This is being a new spot. I don't know what to do with myself, and here it is. I've done about 700 stitches since the last time I showed it, I think. And in a lot of different places. What I'm trying to do is to get all of the little individual stitches over in this area, sort of vertically from here, done, so that I can take the gridding out and move the gridding over, extend it into this other area on this side. So this is almost 2/3 of the way across. In fact, it's just over 2/3 of the way across, I would say. And yeah, that looks exciting that I could finish this really fast. No, not fast. I have modified my goals several times, but this is, this is what I work with. Over here, you can see things that are recognizable, but you see a lot of empty little squares. I'll get there. I go for quantity, but then I realize every stitch has to be stitched, so I don't want to be too, I don't want to be too hasty. So the next thing I will show, this is not in the order, is, you would think that having had a big break, a whole week's break, that I would be better organized. So this is from Winds of Autumn, Mighty Acorn, Blackbird Designs, and I've threatened to start this so many times, and I now have started it. I started it last weekend, which was the first weekend of the month, and I started on the border. So this is all the way across. This is the two corners across, and then I have another 3 or 4 inches to go down. This is on, I'm doing this on a piece of fabric called something by Fox and Rabbit. This is 18 count Aida, and I'm using the called for Weeks Dye Works 1 thread over 1 Aida square, and I think it's going to be really nice. I enjoyed doing what I did there because of my busy life. I did only spend a little bit of time on Saturday and on Sunday doing that, so it's kind of a scant weekend's worth of work, but next month I'll get more going on it. I also worked on Sampler 193 by 2x2 stitch art. As you can see, this is a big square piece. I'm going to make a pillow out of it. Just continuing. It is really something, isn't it? It's going to be, you know, this big. And it is on 16 count white Aida, and the color is DMC 777. I'm doing 2 strands of red floss over 1 Aida square. I think that's going to be something. And I did happen to, another distraction the week that I didn't do a video was that I did this little piece. Let's make it level. So that is, can you recognize it? It's a national park out west. Well done if you did. It's Grand Tetons National Park, and it's on a stitched area that is supposed to represent the map of the state of Wyoming, which is where the Grand Tetons are. So I belong to a Flosstube group called something, TeenyWeeny something. It's an Etsy shop. And they produce teeny-weeny designs of all kinds of things in groups that are thematic. And they are always looking for test stitchers, or for, I would say, model stitchers. And most of the designs are this size. You know, this is about 35 by 40, roughly. And this time they had put out the map, all the states, each one in its shape, and then with something pictured in it that was iconic to that state, and invited people who wanted to stitch them to do so. Well, all the states that actually mean anything to me, places I've lived or special places I've visited, were gone by the time I put my oar in the water. So I said Wyoming because we've been to the Grand Tetons, and because of the states that remained, this was a landmark that I actually recognized, that I thought was very well done. So that's why I ended up with that. And it took part of my stitching time, maybe 3 different days. It was about 900 stitches altogether, but 9 colors perhaps, or 10, very doable. And it was fun. Every theme you can think of, they have done or are about to put out a set of designs that relate to it. They have everything from cactuses to Halloween images to, you know, different flowers and all this. It's all, and everything is in a group. There's a, you know, a whole package of them, and you get 10 patterns for $6 or something. I don't even know the prices because I've never bought one. But the idea being that if you're interested in stitching this kind of thing, you might buy a pack of things that you're interested in, stitch 3 or 4 of them, and do something creative with them. I probably will not do another test stitch for them unless the subject matter is totally compelling, just because I have so many other things to stitch that are much more compelling to me. But that's all right. But that, you know, this, we're gonna say this is a finish. That's a finish. And I have another finish. Well, I think it's a finish. There it is, Emilie Kalwar, 1890. Hands Across the Sea. I was quite obsessed these last several days in finishing that. Here's the pattern booklet. And I did it. So here's the funny thing. I'm gonna just step out of screen for just one moment. I'm just not set up well. So the pattern tells you what to buy. This is, by the way, 18 count white clay, 18 count Aida white clay by Fox and Rabbit. It's just the slightest gray tint. I think it does nicely with the teal colors especially. So the pattern tells you what you need in the way of floss. So it talks about you need 1 skein each of these different things, with the exception of DMC 3808, where you need 2 skeins for 28 to 36 count. So this is equivalent of 36 count. So I bought 2 skeins. And then as I was getting down to the bottom here, you know, this motif, so I did this, and that used a fair amount of that teal color, the darker teal. And this has some, you know, both of these have some of that darker teal in them. And then I was not finished with the little narrow single stitch wide border nor her name, and I thought I'm gonna run out. So it happened that Cindy was over at Joann's, and I texted her and said, could you pick up a skein of this for me, because I might run out. So she did. And this is what I had left of the 2 skeins. Can you see that? That is one little tiny thread of two threads and 1 thread of 1 thread. That is it. That is 2 skeins. And I am not wasteful when it comes to thread. So 2 skeins is the minimum that you need to stitch this if you're doing it on 36 count, 2 threads over 2 squares. So anyway, I'm happy with this. It is a finish, which makes me even more happy to start Hannah Campbell, which I'll talk about in a moment. There it is. Now, as you may remember, I considered whether I was going to put my own name on it or Emilie Kalwar's name, so I put Emilie Kalwar's name. I'm still thinking about whether I might stitch my own name and the date underneath this border down here, and maybe use the light colored thread that goes around those yellow flowers, so that it would hardly show up. Or I might use the light blue, this light aqua color that shows up in these motifs. Or I might just not. I might not do it at all, because it's done. It's done. Now, here's the exciting thing. Hannah Campbell. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know what I'm about to tell you. So I started it. This is 36 count ballet slippers by Fox and Rabbit. And this is using 100.3 silks, which, as you may know, are pretty fine. They're really recommended for 40 count and higher. And I used 103 for Eliza Stringer age 6 that I finished earlier this year, which is which I did on 46 count, and it was fine coverage. Well, this is 36 count. And as I did this, I liked how the threads behaved. I liked how the stitches lay. But I was afraid that I was going to end up spending, every time I picked this up to stitch on it, for the couple of years it might take me to finish this, I was going to be concerned that it wasn't the coverage that I wanted. And I just didn't want to have to convince myself over and over about that. So I contacted the attic, and I got the SDA, Soie d'Argent silks. They had a silk pack already ready. I was trying to go to 1, 2, 3 stitch and order them individually, and there were so many that were out of stock. But I had, I just had this feeling the attic is participating in or leading a stitch along for this project. So probably they have the thread packs ready to go for this. So I just thought, I've never contacted them. I've never been there. I have never done anything with them except for watch a few of their videos and listen to everybody talk about how great it is. And I thought, I'm going to call them. And I talked to somebody, I think her name was Brenda, somebody, very nice person. Do you happen to have the thread packs in Soie d'Argent for Hannah Campbell? Why, yes, I do, right here. And I said, so I want one extra skein of whatever number it is. The instructions on the back say you're going to use 2 skeins. You're going to need 2 skeins at this count using this thread. Very helpful. 1 extra skein of that. Yes, definitely we can do that. And so I gave her my credit card number. I had no idea what it was going to cost. I didn't know if it was going to be, well, I thought it was going to be more than $70 because that's what I paid for the 103s. But is it going to be $150? I had no idea, and frankly, I didn't care. I was just going to do it. So I did it. It came lickety-split, as we say in the industry, and it came in this nice little package. It's labeled Hannah Campbell, really, and they look nice, they feel nice, and I haven't, so this is the 103s. This is my start with the 103s, and I think I'm going to turn the fabric around and start at the other end of it with the Soie d'Argent rather than take that out and try to start in the same spot. I just think that might be easier. So what I did is, and the picture that I posted on Instagram, I will stick here also, I matched up the 103s that I had, the whole set, and the Soie d'Argent. I laid it all out so that all the things were matching. And then everything in this pattern that has an over 1 component, I pulled out those 103s. So that's what these are, plus this shiny thread. So these are the 103s that have a 1 over 1. And these are the regular for the 1 over 2 stitching. And that's what it is. So the other 103s I just put away for now. And there's some beautiful colors among those other 103s, so I'm sure I will use them. I'm not worried about that. But I have, so therefore I made a start on this on around the 20th or so of June, and now I'm going to make another start. And this is kind of the replacement for Emilie Kalwar, although it is not a replacement because it's much larger, much more complicated. There's a stitch along. I joined a Facebook group that's conducting a stitch along, and I may or may not do that. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention about Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather. In Full Coverage Fanatics Facebook group that I'm part of, every July they run an event called Tour de France, something or other. And the idea there is you stitch 1 stitch per kilometer of racing in one of the 3 jerseys that you're going for. So if you want to stitch the whole race, if you want the yellow jersey, then you are going to have to stitch something over 3,000 stitches between July 1st and July 23rd, which is the last day of the race. If you want the polka dot jersey, which is the King of the Mountain jersey, then you need to stitch 2,000 something stitches. And if you want the sprinting jersey, the green jersey, then you need to stitch 1,027. And because I'm going to be gone this next week and I'm not taking that piece with me, I decided that I would go for the sprinting jersey this year. And it's been interesting. I've decided in order to achieve that, I have to stitch 100 stitches a day on that while I'm here in town. And that actually will give me more, that will give me just over about 1,300 stitches because I'm gone 8 or so days. And I missed a couple days at the very beginning of the month. So if I stitch 100 stitches a day, the days I'm in town, I will make that goal. And what I'd really like to do is to get back into the habit of stitching 100 or so stitches per day on that. That would be a goal. One other thing I wanted to show you, two other things. I don't buy tons of project bags, as many folks do, partly because I can make my own, which I have, and partly because I've been given some beautiful ones. But I was so taken with this fabric, I had to buy it. This is made by Raven Stitch Creations, something like that, on Etsy. And I love the fabric. It's very beautifully made. She included a little color coordinated zipper pull there. And I wanted to, I was taken by the fabric. It was something, an Etsy shop recommended by some Flosstuber or other that I have watched. And I wanted to see, what does someone else who's putting out just these plain project bags without the vinyl front, how do they do it? What does it look like when they're done? Because I want to see if the ones I make are similar at all. And I was also curious about the zipper pull. And what is that like? What materials does she use? Because this is a hobby that I am strongly tempted to get involved in, but I haven't dived into that one yet, because, yeah, I need more hobbies, right? Anyway, that was really beautiful. It's nice, very nicely made. I'm pleased with that. And then the other thing is, so when I go to Canada this coming week, Anne, be ready. This is going to be sort of a trial run for going to England. I'm going to pack one cross-stitch project as if I were taking it with me to a foreign country, which I am, on an airplane, which I am, in order to see whether, just how it all works. And one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is what scissors would I be able to take on the plane, because I probably won't cross-stitch on the plane going to Canada because the flights are not that long. But going to England I might, or coming home from England I might, and I might need scissors. So I bought these tiny little things, which I'll put the information about them, where I got them, in the description box. And they're cute, you know, they really are. And they're red, which is my color. I like red. But they're weird because these awls, these are really large. And so it took me some time to figure out exactly how to use them, how to operate them so that I could reliably operate them and didn't feel like they were flopping around and gonna stab my fabric. But I think I've figured it out. But I think the key thing is that the blades are less than 1 inch long. That's what I think. And they were inexpensive enough that if the TSA people say you can't take these, I won't feel bad about just leaving them behind. I mean, I'll feel a little bad because I did pay something for them and they're red and cute, but that is, I won't be overly concerned about the loss of them. So that is all I wanted to talk about with regard to cross stitch. So variety show. And because I paused this video, I can't tell you exactly how long I've had, but I'm gonna guess it's around 24 minutes right now. So I'll try not to go too long. As you know, it was recently my birthday, and I had mentioned that I often receive a new game for my birthday, and I did receive a new game for my birthday. And it reminded me that there's a category of game that I really like, and that the friends that I've collected around me, either they also like it or they are willing to indulge me in it. And that is games which are primarily logic puzzles. Now, you know, I do Sudoku. This weekend is the 7th weekend this year of the World Puzzle Federation Sudoku Grand Prix, so I'll be participating in that. I've been doing pretty well this year. So that's a kind of logic puzzle. And then there are other kinds of logic puzzles, pencil puzzles that I've done over the years, which are wonderful. And then there's a logic puzzle, which is a word logic puzzle, which I have done and I like them, but they're not as favorite to me as the pure sort of abstract logic puzzles. And the ones I'm speaking of are the ones where, you know, you're going to have this grid of interlocking boxes, and you have, you know, Alice, Bob, Clarence, and David each have a different kind of dog, which has a different color collar and likes to go to a different park. And then you're supposed to match them up with sentences like, Alice's dog is not the corgi and doesn't like frisbees. I mean, you know, sort of strange sentences like that that enable you to mark things off in the grid. And I like that kind of logic problem, except I almost always get mixed up about it. I don't know why. I don't know why, because it's not different, not a different way of thinking, really. But this game, Sleuth, is a classic game. I'm not even sure it's still available. I will put the name of the game in the description box. But it is one, so this edition of it is old, 1981. And you can see that they provide you with this paper that lets you mark off what you have deduced by asking questions. And it's made up of cards, which are gem cards, which, you know, this is a pearl, this is a green pearl cluster, and here's, you know, a red diamond cluster, and here's a yellow diamond pair, and so on. So they're groups of gems in different colors, different types of gems, and then you're allowed to ask questions. So you can ask your opponent, one of your opponents, how many yellows do you have, or how many blue solitaires do you have, and then you use that sheet to mark down the information that you got so that you can eventually deduce which gem card is missing. I love this game, and I do play it. Ann and Byron and I play it, actually, and we almost always get mixed up, but it's still kind of interesting. Another game that I think I've mentioned before is the game Coda. And this is a game where there are black and white tiles, 3 or 4 people play, and you each take tiles out of the bags, either the black bag or the white bag. And your goal is to deduce which tiles your opponents are holding. And I don't want to explain it anymore, but for a while this was out of print, but I think it's in print again. And it might even be under a different name. Again, I'll put some information about it in the description box. Love this game. Now I will say that what they say to do is to spread the tiles out face down on the table and mix them up, and that just does not work with these tiles. They keep flipping over. So what I did is I made a cloth bag, a white one and a black one, so that we put the black tiles in the black bag and the white tiles in the white bag. And the white bag, because white fabric is a little see-through, I had to make a double thickness of fabric, and therefore it doesn't really fit in the box as well as just the plain tiles do, but it works fine. And the bags is fine. That's a good way. Now, sort of the classic games, deduction games, the most familiar to most people probably is the game Clue, you know, Colonel Mustard in the conservatory with the lead pipe kind of game. And we certainly have played that game, and I had it as a child and we played it. The problem with that game that I felt was a weakness of it is that you had to move your marker to the place to the location in the mansion where you wanted to do your exploration or make your accusation. And it took time to get there, which wasn't part of the logic part of the game. And because you could be called away by someone else, if you were accusing somebody, they had to be in the room with you. You could be almost all the way to that distant room, and then suddenly you're called back to the dining room, and that was the opposite corner, and I didn't like that aspect of it. And the people that I played with, even as a child, who were into the logic part, didn't like that aspect of it. So that's somewhat, there's a game called 221B Baker Street, which kind of makes that a little better. And then there's a game, I think it's called Mystery in the Abbey, which is another game of that sort, which corrects some of those problems. I I have played 221B Baker Street, but I don't remember much about it. The Mystery in the Abbey game I haven't played, but it's an intriguing one. Again, that may not even be in print anymore. It's been a long time since I heard about it. So that's a category of game which I'm not going to show you. The game Clue you've probably heard of and can easily find. Another game that we have enjoyed, which I think I own a copy of it, but I couldn't lay my hands on it quickly. And it's called Scotland Yard, and it takes place on a map of London. And there, in that game, one person, I'll put an image of it from, I'll find an image somewhere, stick it up here. One person is the criminal, and the other people are the detectives. And the criminal uses means of transportation to move around the city, and the detectives use means of transportation to try to triangulate on his location and capture him. And it is actually a cooperative game. It's, now that I think of it, it's probably the first cooperative game I ever had played or heard of. Quite a good game. It does not suffer from some of the problems that some other of the logical games suffer from. And now there's two games that I've been given recently. This one was for Christmas, maybe this past year or the year before. Cryptid. And this looks like monsters and all, but it's not really. I.e., it has the monster skin on it. That is, it's sort of set as if it were about monsters. A creature whose existence is disputed or unsubstantiated, but it could be anything. It could be, squirrels or pelicans or something. But the idea is that you're going to search on a map made up of hexes, and each player has a piece of information. And when you put your search token, you ask a player, can the cryptid be here? And then the player, based on the piece of information that he has or she, gives you an answer, and it has to be a truthful answer. And this, I think, has a lot of potential, sort of a spatial deduction game. I think there's a lot of potential in that. We haven't played it enough to fully get it, to get the idea of it, but that's something. And then a brand new game I was given. This is my birthday present game, Turing Machine. Now, apparently this is one of those games that was thought to be, they made a small print run of it because they thought it would not be very popular. And it was so in demand that they sold out and had to make another print run and maybe even another. So the friend who gave it to me had hoped to give it to me for Christmas. But the idea here is that you can play it by yourself or you can play it with opponents. And you're supposed to deduce what number combination of the numbers 1 through 5 in different colors is the correct code by querying the Turing machine, which you set up by means of these cards. And then there's a mechanical way to get an answer. So it's sort of like a programming deduction game. Right up my alley, absolutely up my alley. I have not played it yet. As I said, I received it just a few days before the busy week started, and I plan to play. In fact, I have the card table set up. Maybe I'll just get it out at the end of this video. So that's a category of game. I would call it the logical deduction game. It has many features in common with those logic puzzles that I have done and that I described, but they're board games. They're played with actual physical items, cards, pads of paper, and so forth, and with people or alone. Some of them you can play alone, like the Turing machine. You can play alone. I'm going to do that this very afternoon, I think. Yeah. So that is, I think, all I planned to say. As I say, I'm going to Canada. I will not make a video next Friday. I will make a video the following Friday, though I will not have 2 weeks of stitching to do. I think I'm going to take Matilda with me to Canada because it doesn't have tons of colors. It just has red and blue, as you remember. It's the France sampler from the Letters from Europe box. And I'll take that, and I'll take my magnifying lamp, my portable one, and I'll take the little red scissors and the other things that I think I'm going to take to England with me and just see how it goes. I'm going to pretend that I have no alternatives, that what I've brought is pretty much what I have, and just sort of take stock. How did it all work? That will be what I'll be trying to figure out. So that, I think, is all I have to say today. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks for returning, if you're one of my returning people. If you like what you have seen today and in other videos you've watched, please consider subscribing. And if you don't want to miss a video, in case I should put something up out of sequence or an extra, some bonus, you might want to hit that little bell. Click on the little bell icon, and that means you'll get a notification when I put a video up. Yeah, I think that's all. Many blessings to you, friends.